The very first thing we thought when we first got our hands on Yamaha's new YXZ was, man, this thing is awesome. The very next thought we had was, this isn't going to work very well on the trail. Interestingly enough, Yamaha already had those thoughts before we even knew the original YXZ existed. And with those concerns in mind, they co-developed the YXZ SS at exactly the same time. SS stands for Sport Shift. Translated into people speak, it means paddle shifter. But you can't just call it a YXZ with paddle shifters. Why? Because the Toyota Corolla has paddle shifters. What the YXZ has isn't the same thing. There are many different ways to electronically shift a transmission. The Corolla, for example, isn't actually manual in any way. The paddle shifters on that vehicle simply tell the automatic transmission when to shift. It's pretty boring and it's not very sporty. A Ferrari, on the other hand, that's a car that has paddle shifters. They function much like the ones you'd find on an F1 car. The transmission is far more manual than it is automatic, and this is where the YXZ SS's transmission and shifter setup has its roots. No, it's not an F1 car, but it does feel almost as good for one very important reason. The transmission in the YXZ SS is almost identical to that found in the manual version, clutch and all. But instead of actuating the clutch with your foot and the shifter with your hand, the clutch is engaged by an electronic actuator and the gears are shifted with a solenoid. It's as manual as a paddle shift can possibly get. And this is really good because it maintains the manual shift YXZ's level of excitement, but it simplifies the shifting process so it's not as cumbersome in tight situations. The underpinnings of the SS are identical to those of the standard YXZ, as is the motor, and these are two very good things. Why? Because the YXZ is a great platform and that 3-cylinder engine is awesome. It outputs 110 horsepower, so no, not at the same level as today's crop of turbos. But before Can-Am and Polaris raised the turbo horsepower output to 150 plus, the ultra-efficient manual transmission in the YXZ actually kept it pretty close in terms of power getting to the ground. Now though, it's pretty clear, Yamaha needs to up the horsepower to at least 130. Still, that 3-cylinder engine makes excellent torque, pulls hard, and sounds amazing. So if the YXZ SS has the same motor and transmission as the manual shift YXZ, why is it better on the trail if you still have to shift? The simple answer is that the vehicle is doing all the hard work for you. When you shift the SS into gear, the clutch actuator holds the clutch fully open. As you begin to accelerate, the actuator closes the clutch just like you would with your foot, only better. If you didn't know better, you'd swear it was a belt transmission on takeoff. Shifting is equally as smooth and effortless. You just flip the paddle and the computer tells the actuator to open the clutch, quickly shift the gear, and then smoothly let the clutch out. All of this happens in the blink of an eye. The computer can even tell when it needs to slip the clutch a bit to avoid jerky engagement. This is called half clutch, and the only way you'll know it's happening is by watching for the half clutch light on the dashboard. So back to the question at hand. Why does all this make the YXZ SS so easy to drive on the trail? Well, because once you tell the vehicle to shift gears using your fingers, your work is done. No more slipping the clutch when things get tight or slow, or having to keep one hand on the shifter while you're working the gears. On the trail, you just casually flick the paddles and go. Is it as effortless as a CVT? No, but in some ways it's more fun, and there are circumstances when it can actually be more beneficial. There are a few things you need to know about the YXZ SS if you're going to get the most out of it. The first thing you need to understand is auto downshift. The SS is not an automatic and does not have any automatic shifting modes like a Honda, for example. So, auto downshift isn't meant to be a driving tool, it only works at near idle RPM. It's simply a convenience feature. If you're in third gear and you come up to a stop sign, auto downshift will cycle through second and then into first gear just before the vehicle comes to a stop. It's convenient and it's unobtrusive. The next feature you need to know about is launch control. Yamaha wanted to make sure there was no performance disadvantages to driving a YXZ SS, so they incorporated the ability to drop the clutch on takeoff if you want. The system is easy to engage and it works even better than dropping the clutch on a manual YXZ, in my opinion. If the vehicle's in 4x4, the YXZ pulls super hard from a dead stop when the paddles are dropped. There really isn't enough time here to go over all the large and small details that make the YXZ different than its predecessor and unique in the industry. So here's what you need to know, whittled down to the most important detail. The YXZ is everything the regular YXZ is, but thanks to the electronic activation of its manual transmission, it maintains all the fun and excitement of the manual YXZ without any hassles or annoyance. Basically, it's a YXZ for anybody who doesn't live in the desert or the dunes, and it's every bit as good as we hoped it would be.
If you like this video, click the link and subscribe to Trax's YouTube page where we're updating all kinds of fresh stuff like you've just seen.